And I hope you guys are doing well. I wanted to give you guys an update on how things were going from my perspective as a pediatric contract occupational therapist and also about my transition to teletherapy, as you can see. I thought this would be really informative information because I've always been interested in how teletherapy works. And right now, a lot of therapists, such as myself, are making the transition to teletherapy during this pandemic. So, I'm going to talk about the pros, cons, as well as my advice and tips in starting out in teletherapy, as well as some of the new things that we are all trying to adapt to during COVID-19. So, first, let's start off with the pros of teletherapy. I feel very grateful and blessed that the situation has panned out for my circumstances. Initially, I was in a situation where everyone on my caseload, in both my home health early intervention as well as my outpatient clinic setting, were falling off my schedule. No one really felt comfortable coming into a clinic or having someone coming into their home during this time, which I completely understood. And I also wanted to protect myself as much as possible from getting sick, as well as asymptomatically possibly passing this on to someone else. So there was a lot of fear in this situation, and I was trying to figure out what would be the best to pay the bills while also continuing working. So, luckily, teletherapy processed pretty quickly for OT and PT, and I'm so grateful. And I just thank everyone who's working in the realm of advocacy and within AOTA and within all of those board settings to really push for OT and teletherapy. So, thank you for everyone who's working so hard in doing that. And I'm just glad that I can do this. So I wanted to share how things are going. So I wanted to give everyone some feedback and advice if anyone is interested in shifting over to teletherapy or are in the same situation as me. So the pros of teletherapy obviously is that we can continue to work and have flexible hours from a webcam internet access perspective. So in this situation, I am currently able to work from home, but because of the pandemic, there have been some rules and regulations that have been pretty lenient for us in this situation. And normally, if you guys were considering teletherapy in a normal time, it might be different. It might require you to work within a clinic or in a setting that is possibly approved by insurance. So different rules may apply, but for now, I am able to work from home. So I'm doing that with flexible hours and building my own schedule. And I'm able to provide families in rural areas, or in this case, families who are experiencing changes because of the pandemic, consistent therapy. I've also noticed a huge change with a lot of my families and the relationships I've been able to build with the parents because I have to collaborate with them a lot more regularly. So since parents are leading the sessions, I've been offering a lot more parent coaching using more of an occupation parent based coaching model, and that's been very effective in supporting a lot of my kids' goals. And also, it's been helpful to learn about the parents that I'm working with and how their learning styles and teaching styles and even play styles look like, as well as adapting my skills to help them better achieve these goals. I've also noticed that I've been able to address more hands on home modification and effective sensory diets based on the family's home environment. So, before for my clinic based kids, I knew what equipment they had based on what they would share with me. But now that I could physically see what kind of space they had, how much room they had, if they had space for a trampoline or a swing, what kind of toys they had, it was just a lot more effective because I could tell them how to use all of their tools and resources and how to set it up more effectively. So I've noticed that some families didn't really know how to structure the environment to support with sustained attention, perhaps, or to give them adequate sensory time, or how to build sensory time into a longer window of time rather than I can only get them to focus for 30 seconds on this trampoline and then they're gone. So we're able to do a lot more client-based sensory diets as well as like recommendations and strategies because I've been working with them from home. The cons of teletherapy for me have been that some families have been reluctant to get on board with teletherapy when this option rolled in. This was likely because they didn't feel comfortable leading the session or they felt like their child was not very good at attending to someone through a screen, which I understand, but I have had some families come back and say, we'll give it a try, and it's worked out really well, or we've been able to address the behavioral concerns as to why the child didn't want to maybe listen to the parents' instructions, and that's been really great for the child's overall progress. So there's that. Also, just generally, not everyone has the same access to technology. Some parents may only have phones, while other parents might have the webcam desktop access. This is also going to be different depending on the circumstance of teletherapy. So, normally, teletherapy requires more of like a HIPAA compliant webcam application, but of course, the rules right now are a little bit more relaxed. So, in some cases, we have more access to different platforms for video based teletherapy. So, again, this will look different right now during this pandemic. I've been able to get people on the phone through video apps and on webcam desktop apps, and it's been a lot more convenient. But down the line, if only certain teletherapy platforms that are HIPAA compliant are approved, then some families might have difficulty accessing that, especially if they don't have a phone based app. Of course, families have other responsibilities. There are siblings sometimes running through the screen or wanting screen time as well. And also, the workspace might be too large or too small. This really ranges depending on the home environment. And again, this goes back to having to make a lot of modifications and supporting the family and figuring out how we can have the most effective time during the session. The biggest con for me has been sitting at a table for long periods of time and also having way more screen time and talking quite a bit. As a clinician, I'm not used to it. I'm not used to sitting for this long. I'm used to being on the go, driving to families' homes, or being at a clinic in a sensory gym, running around and being very active. So, sitting for long windows has been quite a strain on, I think, my posture as well as just my level of energy and exercise. Overall, we have to establish a better work life balance since I am working from home right now. Even if you were to be working at a clinic for teletherapy, you are still going to have to figure out how to manage a lot of the things we discussed above, and also figuring out when to schedule gaps and healthy breaks, making sure that you're exercising enough, and just giving yourself that nice separation between this is work time and this is my time. Overall, the recommendations that I have if you're going into teletherapy or you're working right now during this pandemic is to establish set work hours. If you have very fluctuating hours every day, it makes it very difficult to set your kind of frame of reference as to what day it is and what your work hours are, and then when you're free. So, this can be a little challenging because everyone has different hours of work. Like you may have children or other responsibilities and you might have to work around that, and I completely understand. But I would say, based on your situation, try to establish some set routine within hours and the structure of your day. I set up my workspace in my little work office, and that's the only place I do my work, so that I associate this is my workspace. After I'm done, I leave. So I also wrote that I dressed for the job. Even though I'm not going into the clinic or seeing people in person, I do just put on my scrubs or my work clothes and I sit there, do my work, and then after I change out of my scrubs immediately to give me a sense of physical change and mental change, where that switch over to my casual clothes makes me really feel like, okay, I'm actually done with work for today. And that small little change has been really helpful. And also, it's professional on screen. And if you ever have to do like floor time and show exercises or show your whole body, you're dressed for work. So it's very appropriate. I mentioned this earlier, but after you start, you kind of want to figure out what breaks you need in your schedule for maybe a walk, a snack, or a stretch break. I have a dog at home, as you guys know, so she usually needs some playtime between 2 to 3 p.m. It's like always the time window. I feel like she goes through this little afternoon slump, and that's when she wants the most attention for me. So I've established that that's not a good window for me to work, and I try to give myself a 30-minute or an hour break there to just walk with her and play with her. Always prepare families in advance if it's possible, and let them know like one or two things you're planning on focusing on for the session so that they can be prepared. It really helps the parents set up for the session, and it's easy as just sending them a text maybe 15 minutes before a session or in the morning and saying, "These are my ideas. If you have anything else, feel free to add to it, but please have, crayons and paper ready, or please have Play-Doh ready." And that way it helps the parents also. And something I've realized that has been very helpful in carrying over homework and just keeping me on top of things, as well as the families, is to text the parents the homework at the end of the session while you guys are discussing it. So I literally have my phone out and I say, "Okay, we're going to review the homework for this week, and I'm going to text it to you right now so that you can refer to it throughout the week." And what happens is usually that's going to be the last text that I have on our conversation. So as next week approaches and I look at the text, I can refer to what exactly I gave them for homework, especially if you have a child with multiple goals. Sometimes it's hard to like refer to the notes and read through everything. And this way it's nice and concise and I can see it. I usually start off the session with, "How are you guys doing this week? And let's talk about how homework went." And we just go down the list. I get their feedback, and then I can carry over any extra strategies or say, "Let's do this activity again today." And that's been very helpful in keeping us consistent. I've also noticed that families get very overwhelmed if you give them too much homework. So I know that a lot of times, especially when a child has various needs, I'll try to target so many things, but instead of giving the parents too many things to think about, I just focus on one or two things for homework so that the parents can actually address it rather than feeling swamped, because we have to keep in mind that these families oftentimes have other therapies. So I have a lot of families who are doing ABA, physical therapy, OT, and speech, or at least 3 out of 4 of those. So it's quite a lot of homework and things to keep in mind for them. So if you can just focus on one or two things for them, I think it makes a huge difference. Also, I highly recommend that you want to be more occupation and client centered. Of course, that's what OTs do, but this is a great time to just be like, "How are you guys doing? And what do you want me to support you in? What do you need from me?" It's such a great open ended question, and it really gives the parents time to reflect with you on what exactly it is at home that's giving them the most difficulty right now with their child. And then you really know what they want to prioritize, and you can incorporate the goals that you have in mind with their priorities. And it really makes the sessions a lot more meaningful. And I think overall, it makes families feel heard and the parents feel more emotionally supported during this time. Last but not least, I wanted to give an overview on what evaluations and reevaluations look like right now, because yes, we are doing these over teletherapy. So it is really interesting because I have been lucky enough to carry over kids that I've already been working with. So I haven't had to do brand new evaluations with anyone yet. But if you have that situation, you want to contact the family in advance on concerns and what their self-care skills look like. So you can kind of ask them a few questions via email and get some information ahead of time. And then you can ask what toys the family has already so that you can prepare for the evaluation. I like to ask if they have like small stackable blocks or Play-Doh and stringing blocks. A lot of the stuff that we see in our Peabody and Bot2 kits are the things that I tend to use as more like standardized testing tools. But since again, they're not going to have all the toys that a standardized test is going to have. So we have to use a lot of parent interview and observation to figure out where this child's skill levels are at. So you have to be prepared to kind of combine that standardized assessment with something more like a observation-based activity. So I listed a few examples here. The COPM, the sensory profile, and the sensory processing measure are all standardized tests that will be accepted by insurance, but they are also all questionnaires. So you can do them all without having to have any equipment. So that's really convenient. I'm sure there are more. So if you have any favorites or you want to share anything, please leave them in the comment box below. Okay, that's everything for today. So I hope this is helpful for all of you who are thinking about teletherapy or in teletherapy or whatever the situation may be. I wanted to share this with you all because it's been quite the learning experience for me as well. And it's taught me a lot as a practitioner how to just modify the situation and adapt the intervention styles for all these families across the board through teletherapy. So it's been a lot of good and stress, but I think that overall I've gained a lot from the experience, and I'm just really glad that I'm able to support these families during the pandemic. So if you have any questions for me or any curiosities about teletherapy, feel free to leave them in the comments and I will get back to you whenever I can. Thanks so much and take care, everyone. Bye.